Good afternoon. One moment, Mr. President. One moment.
Majority Leader, the
Reference of business is ready.
test is ready.
Okay, Mr. President, I move for my previous motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary will proceed with the 8th additional reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 2 June 2020, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 6817, an act prohibiting the discrimination against persons who are declared confirmed, suspect, probable, and recovered cases of COVID-19, repatriated Filipinos, healthcare workers, responders, and service workers, and providing penalties for violation thereof.
Referred to the Committee on Justice.
House number 6595, an act mandating the inclusion of a foreign language other than English in an elective course in the higher education curriculum.
Referred to the Committee on Higher Education.
House number 6654, an act reorganizing and converting the Insurance Commission into a collegial body, amending sections 437, 438, and 439 of Republic Act number 10607, otherwise known as the Insurance Code as amended.
Referred to the Committee on Banks and Justice.
House number 6816, an act ensuring Philippine financial industry resiliency against the COVID-19 pandemic.
Referred to the Committees on Banks and Ways and Means.
House number 6270, an act amending Republic Act number 10366, otherwise known as an act authorizing the Commission of Elections to designate precincts assigned to accessible polling places exclusively for persons with disabilities and senior citizens.
Referred to committees on electoral reforms and social justice.
599, an act establishing a framework for citizens' participation in legislative policy making through the use of information and communications technology platforms.
Referred to Committee on Electoral Reforms and the Committee on Public Information.
House number 6554, an act declaring January 22 of every year a special working holiday in the entire country to be known as National Farmers' Day.
The Committee on Agriculture.
House number 6570, an act declaring the Chinese New Year's Day a special non-working holiday.
Committee on Constitutional Amendments.
House number 6768, an act affording more protection to consumers of financial products and services.
To the Committee on Banks and Trade.
And House number 6803, an act mandating the provision of comprehensive renal replacement therapy to patients with end-stage renal disease in national, regional, and provincial government hospitals, increasing for the purpose the PhilHealth package rate for members and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Health and Finance.
Bills on first reading. Senate number 1586, an act declaring that the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary of Manaoag, the municipality of Manaoag, province of Pangasinan, as a pilgrimage site and tourist destination, providing for its development and appropriating funds therefore, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr.
Refer to the Committees on Tourism, Public Works, and Finance.
Senate number 1587, an act declaring August 12 of every year as the National Youth Day, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr.
Refer to the Committee on Youth.
Resolution. PS Resolution number 438, resolution expressing the sense of the Senate to direct the Department of Health to initiate a more comprehensive and equitable response to the COVID-19 pandemic without sacrificing the attention to other health-related concerns, introduced by Senator Revilla Jr.
To the Committee on Rules.
Communication. Letter from the Executive Secretary of the Office of the President, respectfully transmitting to the Senate the 10th report of the President to the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee pursuant to Section 5 of Republic Act number 11469, otherwise known as the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act.
The Committee on Finance. All right, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I believe Senator Bongo is ready to deliver his privilege. May we recognize the distinguished gentleman from Davao.
Senator Christopher Bongo is recognized.
Mr. President, I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. Will not be entertaining questions after my speech, as I believe this would just prevent us from tackling other urgent and important matters. On March 24, we passed the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act to empower the government in responding to the COVID-19 crisis. Now, we will be passing the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, or Bayanihan 2. but there are still commitments in the previous law that until now have not been acted upon. It was revealed during the plenary deliberations last Tuesday that the benefits for health workers have not been provided yet. 32 na ang namatay na health workers, ilang daan na ang nagkasakit, ilang libong pamilya ang apektado. Pahirapan nyo pa dahil sa matagal na proseso ng pagbibigay ng serbisyo. Bakit po nangyari ito? Dumaan ang Abril, dumaan ang Mayo, ngayon Hunyo na. Hanggang ngayon, di pa naibibigay ang benepisyo na dapat matanggap ng ating health workers o ng kanilang mga pamilyang naulila. Ang ating mga medical frontliners, ang mga bayani sa laban nito, sila po ang nagsasakripisyo, nagpapakamatay para iligtas ang buhay ng kapwa nating Pilipino. Pero simpleng benepisyo na nasa batas, hindi man lang mabigyan ng tamang oras o atensyon ng ating mga opisyal para ayusin at may pamahagi sa kanila. As chair of the Committee on Health and your former colleague in the executive, I have always been supportive of our government agencies. I have also been firm in defending your budget. Nagkasama tayo noon at nagtiwala ako sa kakayahan ninyo. Pero gaya ng sabi ko noon pa man, kung may nakikita akong mali, magsasalita ako. Kapag tungkol sa serbisyo at trabaho para sa tao ang pinag-uusapan, magsasalita ako. The President has been very clear against red tape. In fact, he has firmly stated that within 42 to 72 hours, all papers should have been acted upon. Ibig sabihin, huwag patagalin, huwag patulugin sa lamesa. Ito, 2 buwan na po, wala pa rin. Bakit matagal? O sadya bang pinapatagal? O wala bang gumagalaw sa inyo? Ang Pangulo na rin mismo ang nagsabi na dapat magbigyan ng karapatang suporta ang ating mga health workers at ang kanilang mga pamilya. Huwag natin hayaan na mabaliwala ang sakripisyo nila dahil lang sa mabagal na bureaucracy. Mr. President, I am also dismayed by the conflicting statements of the DBM and the Department of Health. Kailangan daw ng guidelines bago ilabas ang pera. Sabi naman ng DOH, hindi na kailangan. Hoy, DBM, DOH, pati na rin po ang DOLE. Mag-usap-usap naman kayo at mag-coordinate kayo sa isa't isa. Marahil hindi po alam ng Pangulo. Patay-patayan kayo. Ngayon, na-expose na sa publiko ang problema. Mag-i-issue kayo ng joint issuance para implement ang isang bagay na noon pa ninyo dapat ginawa. Kung kailan kayo sinabihan, doon pa ninyo ginagawa yung guidelines. Kung kailan kayo pinuna, doon lang ninyo tatawagan ang mga pamilyang naulila ng frontliners na sinakripisyo ang kanilang buhay para sa bayan. Hindi naman po siguro kayo mga bata na kailangan pagsabihan kung anong dapat gawin o anong mga tama. Sa mga undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, down to the director, dyan sa mga opisina, dapat tulungan nyo naman po ang inyong mga secretaries. Hindi nila kaya mag-isa sa panahon ngayon. Gumising naman kayo. Nagtutulog-tulogan ba kayo? O nagpapatay-patayan kayo? O talagang patay na kayo? Kulang ang salapi para bayaran ang kabayanihan nila. Serbisyong maayos lang naman pwede nating maisukli sa mga nagtatrabaho para sa bayan. Kung ayaw nyo magtrabaho, di umalis na kayo. Ginagawa na nga ng Pangulo ang lahat. Yung mga tao sa baba, ayaw tumulong, ayaw gumalaw. Umalis na kayo. Ganito ba talaga ang burokrasya? Namatayan na nga, pinapahirapan pa. Dapat nga ihatid ninyo agad ang cheque sa pamilya. Mismo sa bahay nila. Iabot ninyo dun. Masasayang lang ang oras ninyo sa pagsagot ng mga batikos. Kung kaya sana ay gumalaw na lang kayo sa lalong madaling panahon. Wala na yung programang Hoy Gising, pero hoy, missing naman kayo. Our health workers are doing one of the most difficult and dangerous jobs against an unseen enemy. A sickness until now has no cure. They have paid the ultimate price, their lives, so that the rest of our countrymen and women will continue to live. Huwag naman sana kung kayo kaya ang mamatayan at pahirapan pa sa pagbigay ng tulong sa inyo. Tulad ng ginagawa ninyo sa mga Pilipinong apektado. Ewan ko na lang kung hindi kayo mamatay sa sama ng loob. As the chair of the Senate Committee on Health and as a member of the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on the implementation of the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, I call upon the concerned agencies to remedy this immediately and release the rightful compensation for and have been as provided by law. Thank you.
The minority floor leader would like to be recognized, Mr. President.
Thank you. Yes, Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. For the record, let me extend my commendation and congratulations to the gentleman from Davao for that very expression of concern for the welfare of our frontliners. However, I would like to make it a record and probably have put a parliamentary inquiry on the record. As we said, we commend the gentleman from Davao for his taking the privilege hour to call the attention of the bureaucracy on this neglect on our frontliners. But the good gentleman has said he will not take questions. That is the privilege of the gentleman from Davao because he has the floor and he can always take the position that he will not take questions. We recognize that, and that is the privilege. However, I just want to place a record that prior to this Congress, there was no such practice of not accepting or not allowing interpellation. And because historically and by tradition, the Senate has always been known to be the arena where the policies of the national governments are debated, either through law or through resolutions or through privileged speeches. And that is when theories are tested, when policies are debated, when in the effort to come up with a better policy. And as I would repeat, it is the privilege of the gentleman from Davao not to take questions on interpellation. Under our rules, the parliamentary rules, we could not do anything. I just want to know, however, if this is the new normal that we have, Mr. President, not allowing interpellations on the floor in an effort to thrash out policies and strengthen the positions that we would take on national issues. I'm placing that on the floor, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Yes, as you well mentioned, it is the prerogative of the senator. But indeed, it was never the practice to not entertain any questions or interpellation anytime you stand on the floor or anytime you rise or take the floor. It happened before once or twice. Senator Miriam Defensor, he didn't want us to interpellate her during the RH debates. I remember that, Senator Enrile and I. But usually, the practice is that when you rise, you have to answer the questions or you have to allow yourself to be interpellated. Perhaps it will be the gentleman from Davao will be well advised to next time. Anyway, he has a very good point that he should allow it. Although, as you said, we cannot force anyone to yield the floor to anyone when he rises. Unfortunately, Minority Leader.
Senator Cayetano.
Mr. President, Senator Cayetano would like to be recognized.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
President, I just want to add to your recollection of our history on RH. I think Senator Miriam, if she did do that, I can't really recall. It's probably because alam niyang ando naman ako para sumagot nung nagtatanong po kayo. Kasi naalala ko naghati kami dun sa work, and then if you recall, she was focusing on remember, I believe the good senator had a master's or a PhD in theology. So she was lecturing us about Catholic doctrine, and so I think she didn't want to be interpolated on that. If I were just to add to the our walking down memory lane.
Yes, and I do recall that it's not that she did not want to or she was not capable of answering our answers. No, she just refused to talk to Senator really. That's how I recall it. And she was giving me a smirk at times. So, but we take it in stride. We're veteran legislators here. Sometimes we raise our voices to each other, especially in the 9th and 10th, 11th Congress. We shout at each other on the floor, but after the gavel is banged, we even hug each other and are friendly. I just recall that indeed, in the records, it shows that there were times.
And
We do understand the point of then Senator Miriam.
yes,
We do understand also the point of Senator Dilot. But that is the prerogative of Senator Bongo.
we do recognize this the prerogative, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Senator Dillon, and then afterwards Senator Bongo.
Yes,
Mr. President, I'd like to reply.
We premised our parliamentary inquiry precisely on that it is the privilege of the one who has the floor not to take questions on the period of interpellation. And that is why the Senate President has, cited the case of Senator Defensor, the only one that he could cite in his 20 or more years of service in the Senate. And that was a peculiar circumstance because either, if I recall correctly, it may be that Senator Miriam was already suffering from an ailment at that time and did not want to be burdened with additional questions from the likes of Senator Enrile and the Senate President then. But I'm just putting it on the floor. As I recognize parliamentary rules, I recognize privileges of the senator on the floor, and we do not question that. We just want to know if this is now the new normal in this Congress.
I don't think it is. Definitely not.
Okay.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Bongo to
Senator Bongo is recognized.
Mr. President, the observation of the minority floor leader is well noted. Thank you very much for the reminder. But it depends on the issue, Mr. President, if I'm willing to be interpellated. Itong issue na ito, it's my privilege. And siguro kung baka matatagalan tayo, maubos yung oras natin dito. Remember that we are colleagues here. We are elected by the people and we are all senators. I am not your student and you are not my proctor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, before we, yes, Mr. President, I hope that Senator Bongo is listening. It's just that we're actually very appreciative of the fact that he now recognizes the shortcomings of the DOH. I can recall that we had asked, that was an approved Senate resolution asking for the leadership change in the DOH. They have good undersecretaries, they have good assistant secretaries. Leadership is what is giving them direction, Mr. President. And I can clearly recall that the President of the Republic, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, had promised the families of the dead doctors and nurses na bibigyan sila ng tag-1 milyon dito sa bagong Bayanihan 1 Tuhilas 1 Act. So it's possible that the President doesn't know this, It's possible, hindi niya alam na hindi pala nabibigyan itong mga pamilyang ito. And I'm so happy to read in all the online papers today the releases and the statements of our Senate President. Senate President Soto had come out asking also what had happened to the funds. Our group also, Senator Angara, Nancy, Sherwin, Joel, Villanueva, and myself came out with a letter asking the DOH also to release the funds the soonest possible time. So I'm happy that, and our other colleagues had also come up with comments. Senator Ralph Recto also came out with a comment. It was in the newspapers I read earlier this morning. So I'm happy that our dear friend from Davao, Senator Bongo, has seen these shortcomings. And I hope he can whisper to the powers that be that maybe it is time to act even further rather than having a blind eye, so that in the next few months, whether there's a second wave or a third wave, or there's a decline in COVID-19, and therefore we will be doing cleanup operations and more general quarantine, that the DOH has inspired leadership, has renewed leadership, Mr. President. Kasi katulad yan, simpleng bagay lamang, hindi nila maibibigay. E namatay na po itong mga bayani ito, na matagal na naghihintay mga pamilya nila ng konting ayuda. So I'm happy that Senator Bongo today pointed it out. Being from the cabinet himself once upon a time, maybe he can now exert more effort to the President to show him that may kakulungan nga, Mr. President, na nangyayari. Mr. President, I believe Senator Francis Tolentino would like to also ask a parliamentary inquiry. He messaged me.
Just to cap off the issue, the minority leader was asking for the floor.
Yes. Senator Frank, I would like to recognize the minority floor leader if he still wants the floor.
No, I think the responses given by the Senate President is indeed in order, and our parliamentary inquiry has been responded.
All right, thank you. As a matter of fact, for the record, as early as yesterday, I personally sent a very strongly worded letter to the Department of Health concerning that. All right, Senator Francis Tolentino is recognized for a parliamentary inquiry.
Just a short parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President. Last May 4, prior to the resumption of our proceedings, this chamber adopted a resolution which, to this representation, has no definitive finality relative to the duration. And I'm referring, Mr. President, to the hybrid rules which we adopted, amending for the purpose Section 41 of our rules, Section 41, Rule 14, as well as Rule 11, Section 22. And that is why we are now having the hybrid proceedings. The query coming from this representation is relative to the duration of these rules. So Mr. President, glancing at the transcripts, the records would show that on May 4, 2020, we never had a definitive closure on when the hybrid proceedings would end. And this is likewise pregnant with a constitutional implication, again, Mr. President, because when we convene on the fourth Monday of July, it is the day when the President will speak before the nation, the traditional State of the Nation address. The query, Mr. President, is what is the real duration of our hybrid rules? That's number one. And then the second, the implication is that how will this affect the State of the Nation address? I've been looking at the records, Mr. President, and if I may be allowed to reiterate that again in the records,
Please.
several of our senators, several of our colleagues manifested that the hybrid, the teleconferencing will end on June 30. I'm referring to, with all due respect, to the minority leader when he suggested that it should end on June 30. And then there was another reply emanating from the good majority leader that it should be contemporaneous with the ECQ. But right now, Mr. President, we are now on a GCQ. And if my premonition would be correct, by July, we might be on a modified GCQ, MGCQ. So, Mr. President, I think this has to be definitively answered before we go on a break, Mr. President.
Can you read to me the
Mr. President.
Senator Angara? Will you read to me the transcript of that part wherein the minority leader said that and what the majority leader answered?
Yes, Mr. President. I will just read the highlighted portions of my copy. This is quite lengthy. This is 118 pages, Mr. President. Quote unquote, again, with all due respect, Senator Drilon said, my suggestion is that we allow teleconferencing until June 30, the expiration of Congress. And in July, when we go back, if the situation calls for it, there is a qualification, we can re-adopt another resolution, meaning the resolution for the hybrid. Senator Zubiri, in another reply, mentioned that the members of the majority of the Senate will determine if there is still a national emergency to extend or to cut short the particular teleconferencing rule. If the Senate President will say it will end on June 30, then we will discuss, according to Senator Zubiri. So when we go back after the State of the Nation address, we can again determine an extension as the majority of the senators will be deciding. So the response coming from Senator Drilon, and I'm reading from the records that, and I quote, so in effect, the resolution allowing teleconferencing will expire on June 30 this year, 2020, and subject again to a debate when the next Congress, the next session, convenes on the fourth Monday of July. Question, is that the correct interpretation, Mr. President, as per Senator Drilon? So, Senator Zubiri...
And what did I say?
No, the majority leader replied, and then the Senate President, I think, was not part of this parliamentary conversations. And the immediate response came from Senator Zubiri. We are amending the general rule, our rules of the Senate, which is the mother rule. Mother rule po natin yan. Because we have to publish this after today, we'll ask the Secretary to publish this. So what we did pass was, and I'm abbreviating this, we place it in our general rule that during the national emergency or due to force majeure, we may be allowed to use teleconferencing or other video teleconferencing technology with the condition that it is approved by the Senate, majority of the senators. Thank you, Mr. President, as per Senator Zubiri. So again, Mr. President, it appears that we are basing all the discussions from the declaration emanating from the Chief Executive relative to the declaration of a national health emergency. I'm looking at the exact copy here, which, if my recollection is correct, would end September, Mr. President. I think it's Proclamation 929. It's somewhere here. I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Bakit? 6 months ang sabi niya.
Opo. So, again, my question is premised on what will happen after we adjourn today, Mr. President. Shall we reconvene on a teleconferencing mode, or shall we follow the traditional constitutional mode of convening physically for the traditional State of the Nation address, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Before I react, may we hear?
Mr. President,
Yes,
may I be recognized? Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Well, the point was a point of order. The point of order is they have to first dispense with the speech of Senator Bongo before we can act on any other matter, Mr. President. My apologies, I should have stopped Senator Tolentino. I thought the parliamentary inquiry was also in the similar nature as the speech of Senator Bongo. With that, Mr. President, may I be allowed to just refer the privilege speech of the good gentleman from Davao to the Committee on Accountability in Public Officers and Investigations as the primary committee and the Committee on Health as the secondary committee. And so much,
All
President.
right. Hearing no objection, so referred.
And to answer the query, yes, Mr. President, to answer,
Before I react or I answer the parliamentary inquiry of Senator Tolentino, there are a number of members who would like to react. So, Senator Sani Angara is recognized.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to ask the body to consider the plight of many of the workers of the Senate who take public transportation. I only asked my staff to help me with the Bayanihan bill, those who have private cars. Pero the reality is marami sa kanya walang masakyan dyan. So whatever we decide, please take their plight into account. Hindi pa naayos masyado yung sitwasyon sa transportasyon, Mr. President. There are a number of we have the makeshift arrangement where we have some kind of rapid transit buses, but they're very few so far. So kulang ho talaga yung masasakyan na options ng ating mga kababayan, Mr. President.
All right. Well, anyway, just as a reaction to the what the Senator Angara mentioned, out of 900 employees of the Senate, 900 plus of the Secretariat, Secretariat alone, not the offices of the senators, during the entire ECQ, and up to now, only 43 did not go to work.
Wow.
Not even once. That's how diligent the employees of the senators are.
Physically, you mean, Mr.
Yeah,
President?
physically, yes. Sasalitan sila pero dumarating sila rito. And they find a way to be able to go to work. So on record, there are only 43 employees who were not able to.
Pero siguro sa senador, in my case, I think of the 30 plus employees, maybe around half don't have private cars, Your Honor. They take public transportation.
Well, that's a different story. So,
Yeah.
what was your the last point you raised? The question.
Ayun lang ho, whatever
Okay.
the Senate decides to do for its rules which affect the senators, that's not a problem because all senators have private cars. Pero yung a-adapt po ng Secretariat with respect to the employees and perhaps the senators' offices, or maybe leave it to the senator's office to decide their policy para
Leave
may
it to them.
flexibility ho. Yun lang ho.
Yeah.
Yun lang ho,
Alright,
Mr.
alright.
President.
All right.
Mr. President,
The offices of the senators are concerned. We leave it to the individual senator. No, now,
Mr. President.
is there any other reaction before I?
Mr. President, the Majority Leader, Mr. President, would like to be recognized.
The leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just confirm what the good gentleman from Cavite had said. As determined by the majority of all members of the Senate, which may prevent the convening of the Senate for physical presence of its members in the session hall. Mr. President, we cannot predict the future. If there is a surge, for example, we declare that we go back to work on July 27, State of the Nation address, and there is a second wave with more cases of COVID-19 across Metro Manila and the Philippines, then we all have to technically all go there, which I don't mind doing. I've done several times already. But for our colleagues to agree that we all have to physically be present, have a quorum, and then decide. Can we decide when we start on July 27, Mr. President, whether we will have a full convening of the Senate or not? The reason being, Mr. President, is even the President, when I asked Senator Bongo what the plans of Malacanang is for our State of the Nation address, as of now, Mr. President, the PSG who does not agree that we have 5,000 people inside the House of Representatives and all members of cabinet, including all officials of the land, in one particular occasion. They are frowning upon that, Mr. President, as told to me by Senator Bongo. We might have a hybrid system wherein the options are either the president alone, together with select members of Congress and the Senate, without any guests, appear together in the House of Representatives, or another option is they will have a teleconferencing from Malacanang and we watch either in the Senate or in the House of Representatives the report of the President. So even that, Mr. President, is not final. The State of the Nation address of the President in this new normal where we have the pandemic of the COVID-19. So I would suggest, Mr. President, instead of acting upon that now, the best time to act on that motion of the query of the good gentleman from Cavite, with all due respect, is when we come back on the third week of July, or before the State of the Nation address. We could have a caucus, an all-members caucus. We can call it prior to the opening of Congress and make that decision, Mr. President.
The sound of the majority leader has...
Yes, Mr. President.
Wala yung sound ni majority leader sa uli. But anyway,
Yes. Did you get me, Mr. President? Were you able to get the last part?
minority
Mr.
leader,
President.
again, minority leader before the... Yeah. Yes. So the minority leader, Senator Dillon.
Mr. President, he's on mute.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. My recollection during our debates, and as borne out by the record read by the gentleman from Cavite, is that the chamber as an institution will decide by a majority vote as to whether we continue with this practice or go back to the old rule that we must be personally present. That was our consensus, although that majority opinion decision will inevitably be based as to whether or not we are still in the period of emergency because of the pandemic. But we have to assert by making that decision of the majority of the senators that we control our own proceedings, our legislative calendar. We have full control, and I would really, I would go along with the majority leader that we re-examine it in July, because this hybrid session indeed is dictated by necessity. We do not want to be exposed to the risk of COVID-19. That is why we have to decide before we come back, because there are questions in my mind that would crop up if we continue doing this, principally on our ability to vote. As you know, our present rules, even if you are just in the lounge, you cannot cast your vote because you must be personally be present in the session hall. Now, under these rules, we can vote anywhere. In fact, now we are voting from our respective residences, and maybe the majority leader we may be voting from Bukidnon, and Senator Aimee will be voting from Ilocos. So it raises a lot of questions because, for example, if somebody is in Hong Kong, can he vote? So I would really endorse. I really would reinforce that rule that we decide that the Senate decides as an institution whether or not to continue with these rules, and I endorse. I would go along with the suggestion of the majority leader that we meet in caucus before July 27th. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. As a matter of fact, we got ahead of ourselves. We already placed it in our rules, and I will read it afterwards after a short quip, because Senator De La Rosa is enjoying being physically present here. Oh, Anyway, levity aside, Mr. President, Your Honors, my esteemed colleagues, as I said, we decided in advance under our rules now that we approve through a resolution. We I call your attention to Rule 14, Section 41, that says the President, after consultation with the Majority Leader and Minority Leader respectively, may, letter A, postpone the holding of the session on a day-to-day adjournment, or B, convene and hold the session through teleconference, video conference, or other reliable forms of remote or electronic means using appropriate information, etc., etc. So perhaps what we just would have to decide on would be what to do on July 27. Then thereafter, or my suggestion is this. We convene on July 27, of course, as mandated by the Constitution, in the morning at 10 o'clock.
Yes,
When we do that, we should be physically present.
yes.
We must have a quorum and physically present in the Senate. Then we can decide through the Senate President and the Majority Leader and the Minority Leader consulting all the members of the Senate if we will continue with allowing a teleconference or not. That will be July 27. Most probably we will be under MGCQ, or even better, God permitting. If that will suffice, then Senator Tolentino, would you like to react to that suggestion?
I think, Mr. President, that's a good compromise, reflecting your legislative parliamentary wisdom. Again, Mr. President, thank you for the clarification. And I think the decision would have to be made on a day prior to our reconvening or even earlier. And I think this will clarify everything. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. As we speak, the Presidential Security Group in the office of the President is already having talks with the Senate Secretariat and the Senate Secretary herself, and also the Secretary General of the House. There is a suggestion that the President will deliver his State of the Nation address in Malacanang. And it is up to the senators and the congressmen on where they would want to listen. That is the initial reaction and initial proposal that they have. We have not agreed, but if we do agree, and if all of you agree, we can stay here. We need not go to Congress or to the House of Representatives because the President will not be there. He will be in Malacanang. We can monitor from here. And the congressmen may monitor from their house. Well, that is, as I said, initial stages of talks between the three groups. The OSP, Senate Secretariat, and the House Secretary General's office.
We agree.
Again, thank you, Mr. President. I yield the
All right.
floor.
All right, thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, that's a perfect compromise, Mr. President. We can do that. And we can actually monitor from the Senate. So after our opening at 10 a.m., we just remain in the Senate and listen to the State of the Nation address from there. If the President will not have to be physically present in the Congress. That is a good alternative, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is the situation. We are awaiting for any possible certification of the Bayanihan Tuilas 1 Act Part 2. It has not been given yet, Mr. President, although would their colleagues, Mr. President, want a short caucus before we make a decision whether to proceed with the closing ceremonies or to wait for the certification, Mr. President?
I don't think it's necessary, Your Honor. Perhaps what we can do is just get in touch with the palace and find out if they are going to certify it or not, once and for all. So that we can proceed with or we can proceed with the. Are there third reading items? Wala. Okay.
We have
So
none,
we can
sir.
proceed with the, we can proceed with the proposed Senate resolutions and adopting resolutions for the ceremonial resolutions, if you wish.
Yes, Mr.
Let's
Yes.
have somebody get in touch with the palace and find out, are you certifying it or not?
Yes. That's correct, Mr. President. Mr. President, may we ask, I had texted the Secretary of Finance, but I have not no reply. May I at least ask for just a few minutes suspension to confer with the chairman of the Committee on Finance?
All right, all right. The Senate session is suspended.